everybody, it's me, Hannah. This is the second video I've filmed, probably will also be the second video that goes up on my channel. So this is the second drawing about books video, and in this episode we are doing The Sentry Man of Two Worlds by Lemire. I'm not quite sure how you say his name, but I love comics and I love The Sentry, and this is actually, I realized, the first time I've tried to draw a sort of traditional superhero art. So I think it went really well. Copying is a different proposition from doing original art. But it's just always a good place to start. So I lost the beginning of this video. I'm going to try to do some sort of live narrated in the future, but I knew this one was going to be really long, so I did not try to do that for this one. You're already watching it at double speed, and I will speed it up again further after the chit chat is done. You can see the book page I'm using on the side there. I did show the cover and everything, and the bit that I lost, but that's okay. Now I've already forgotten if I just said that I lost the beginning of the video, but it's fine because it was going to be super long anyway. So I had kind of blocked out my gestures and am now working on the actual sort of line art. And the Sentry is a less well-known Marvel Comics character. He's kind of Superman, but his whole thing is that his powers are intimately tied to a sort of entity called the Void. Depending on the storyline, he either has amnesia and doesn't remember that he's the Sentry, because if he's the Sentry, the Void also comes into existence. Or sometimes, in this one in particular, happens after a Doctor Strange story where Doctor Strange set up a system whereby he could be the Sentry in his mind but not in reality, so that he could continue fighting the Void in his mind, but the Void wouldn't come into reality. That's not a spoiler. That happened in Doctor Strange, and is sort of the background for this whole story. It was a really good book. It's a standalone book. I think you might enjoy it more if you already know who the Sentry is, but to get to that point, you might have to read a whole lot of old Avengers stuff that's not very good. So I think you could read this on its own and enjoy it. I'm looking up the original artist that I'm copying here, because it was in the page that I showed at the beginning that I don't have anymore. But I do want to give credit to that person. It's illustrated by Joshua Cassara and Kim Jacinto. So credit to them. That'll also be in the description. I think I'll also try in the description to list both this book, like I normally would, and maybe a few other places you can find the Sentry, because he's really cool. And I think part of what makes him so cool and different, and probably what kind of puts more comic book authors off from writing him, is that his whole sort of Void situation is really sometimes an allegory, sometimes a direct story about mental illness and mental health, and he's one of the only superheroes I know of who's that deeply associated with a mental health issue. And the feeling of wanting to be able to do something and just not being able to, being literally unable to do the thing that you want to do. I've mentioned before and in most places that I'm autistic, and I struggle a lot with executive dysfunction. which is also associated with ADHD, which I also probably have, and anxiety and depression in general. It makes it really difficult to do things like start something or switch from one task to another. And that might not sound as disabling as some other things, but it's a huge struggle and really, really difficult to want to do something so bad and just not be able to do it. And no matter what the reason, a lot of disabled people or mentally ill people, I think, could relate to that. And I've really never seen that depicted in a superhero other than in the Sentry. And the other superhero who I believe is bipolar. The other sort of mental health superhero was Obsidian from DC Comics. He was in the Justice Society of America for a long time, and he's the original Green Lantern's son. His mental health is also a significant part of his whole story, so I recommend him as a character, but I also recommend the Justice Society series because it's fantastic. It's better than any Justice League series you'll ever read. So I will probably also list or link that in the description. Maybe I can find some kind of list of superheroes dealing with mental health issues. Depending on the book that you're reading, the Void is either his own personality or a sort of mental virus that he's gotten from space, or it's a literal mental health issue. It just depends, but it's always the same kind of metaphor. I'm watching myself draw here. I picked this page because I really wanted to draw something dramatic. Um, Something that gave me the opportunity to practice that just typical classic superhero look. Um, in the future, I do want to try maybe copying kind of a page with a, a layout of panels and smaller drawings, because when you're doing panels like that, they're less detailed than in a big whole splash page like this one. So I do want to try that. Um, I don't know if traditional superhero art is really what I want to do yet, but I definitely wanted to try it, and I want to understand it a little bit better than I do right now. It turned out to be, I hesitate to say simpler than I expected, but it's really all about that anatomy and the sort of dynamics of the positioning of the characters. So again, I don't know if I want to work with companies as an artist in the future, or if I want to be more of an author illustrator. I'm just kind of exploring right now, but I love superheroes more than life itself. So I definitely wanted to explore that a little bit. And I do sort of I'm not sure how typical this is, but I feel like I kind of draw more, I don't know, more details to start with and then change them rather than sketching it out all at the beginning. I definitely place the elements of the drawing, but then I just kind of work like I'm doing here, top to bottom, laying out the lines where I want them, because that just makes sense to me in my brain. So I am for sure going to go back and add more detail, but I find that just drawing, for instance, drawing that whole arm with its sculpted, amazing biceps and everything is the only way that I can then kind of move on to other parts of the drawing and place them correctly. So if I try to just do sort of blobs or stick figures and then move on from there, it's harder for me to place things properly and the proportions start coming off weird. It seems like the opposite. I'm not sure if I'm describing it in a way that makes any sense at all, but it seems opposite from what I've heard other people do and seen other people do, where they want to place things first to make sure that they're in the right proportion to each other, and that seems like it would make sense, but my brain just doesn't do it that way. So I hate drawing hands. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at drawing hands. I am the what's that famous artist's name? The Rob Liefeld of drawing hands. Feet, fine. Hands, awful. So a little bit more about the book and why I chose to draw out of it. It was fantastic because a lot of Jeff Lemire's stuff is fantastic. I mean, he ranges like anybody else does. I don't absolutely adore all of his stuff, but he, I think his first sort of famous work was Essex County. It was kind of like a indie sort of thing about a farm kid. And then he's working for DC and Marvel now a lot. Still doing some of his own original work, but he's also doing the Black Hammer series, which I think is, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to look up the publisher for that. One second. It's Dark Horse. For Dark Horse, it's a superhero series, but it's got its own sort of sensibility. It's got characters who are clearly versions of or takes on more classic characters, or more well-known characters, but it's developing its own mythos. It's many, many volumes deep at this point. But this book really reminds me of that in a lot of ways. As soon as I opened it up and remembered it was a Jeff Lemire book, I thought, oh no, I know what I am in for. I'm going to cry like a baby. Black Hammer is all about these characters who are sort of trapped in this virtual construction of a little farm town village situation. And they used to be superheroes and they don't know how they got here, but they're just kind of stuck here. And some of them want to stay and some of them don't. Some of them are having a better time than others, and that's why they want to stay. And that kind of duality plays a lot into this Sentry book, especially with the idea that he's the Sentry in his mind to avoid being the Sentry in real life. And I'm not gonna give any spoilers for how the rest of the plot goes. But that whole theme and dynamic was really fascinating. And I believe this was supposed to be an ongoing series and was canceled. This is just the one volume. It ends not on a cliffhanger, but on a point where I really wanted there to be more, so I'm hoping the Sentry will once again reappear in another series because he seems to, I don't know if Marvel prefers to have him as a supporting character or if writers prefer to do that. But he tends to appear as a supporting character, kind of like the Hulk in the MCU movies. Doesn't get his own, but appears in a lot of others. Anyway, I got distracted by my own thoughts and I don't know what I was thinking about now. Gotta get that butt looking good. Now I'm trying to remember if there was anything else I wanted to say about the book before I moved on. So far, I've been pretty bad about reading the book and coming up with an idea for the art, and then actually filming the video several weeks later, and then sometimes recording the audio several weeks after that. And I'm definitely going to try to work on getting better at taking notes and making sure I know all the things I want to say, but I also don't want to spoil the book for you, so just carrying on. I also feel like I erase a lot more than people typically say. They like to kind of, excuse me, get that rough sketch out and then refine it, but I feel like I sort of refine and erase as I go, or I just cannot keep track of which lines were the ones that I wanted to keep, so whatever works. I am going to try my own design for the Sentry. I'm waiting on a special pen that I want to get before I do that, because I really want to try drawing in gold and white gel pen on black paper to do sort of a dark Sentry design, what he might look like if he really embraced the void and became either a very dark hero or even a villain. In my mind, he wouldn't be a villain. He would have resolved his problems with the void and realized how to balance that rather than fight it. Again, no spoilers, but that is a big theme of this book and one of the reasons I liked it so much. That is Howard, or not Howard, that's Tony Stark, you can see in the background just freaking out. I decided not to draw him in there just because I really wanted to study this pose and didn't want to make it even longer than it was going to be, because this took about 3 hours all told, from the pencil drawing to the inking. And I thought about, one of the reasons I put off recording this audio was I was thinking about trying to add digital coloring to it after the inking. I got a laptop that has a touch screen that flips over into a tablet, and I'm really excited about trying some digital art and coloring with it. There's my kitty. You're going to see him so many times, because when I sit and draw at the table, he demands to be held. So I was actually holding him with my left hand for a lot of the video you already saw, and then he decided to walk back and forth. It sounds sweet. It is sweet. It's also really frustrating. And one day I will have an art table where that will not happen, just so that he won't get smudges and things on my art. But for now, it's fine. And it is very sweet. I'm going to put in a picture of me holding him while I'm drawing this. What was I talking about? Adding digital color. So I'm still waiting on a stylus to do that. So I decided to go ahead and put this up, but you can follow me on Instagram if you want to see my attempt at digital color whenever I get that stylus. You can also follow me there for to see the gold and or white on black Sentry design. Whether or not it works, I don't know yet, but you will be able to see it on Instagram, so I will link that as well. I'm not sure if I'm fooling with the cat here or if I was drawing down at the feet. I tried to keep as much of it on screen as possible, but didn't always work. My setup is pretty kludgy right now, but it will get better over time. It's sort of a money issue more than a know-how issue. You see my kitty's tail right there? His name is Mo. It's short for Amontillado. I got him 14 years ago on the same day that I first read The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. Fun fact. Let's see, we are 20-ish minutes in here. I'm definitely not going to talk for the remaining time. These are Faber-Castell pens that I remember to show the camera this time. I really like these, but they just they're kind of the ones I just started using, and I have not tried a whole lot of art pens. I really like these, especially the brush pens, except that they're not waterproof. So if you can recommend a good waterproof brand of art pens that come in different sizes, I would be interested to hear about that, but for now I just use these. It doesn't matter all that much usually, but sometimes I like to try different things with watercolor and ink, and these have to go over the watercolor if I'm going to use them at all. And I am drawing on Bristol board, 11 by 17. Wanted to do this one upright. MO. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up even further. So you can watch it take form. I'm still, experimenting with kind of how the narration is going to go, whether or not I should speed it up at the beginning and talk over a very sped up video. I'm not sure yet what will work best. I did try recording a Charlotte's Web video or two talking while I was drawing, and that took an absolute eternity. I got hardly anywhere in about half an hour because I was distracted talking. I can't talk and draw at the same time apparently, but I can work on developing that skill if that's something that y'all prefer, because I think it does add a lot to understanding the thought process and things like that, especially with original art versus just a copy. But anyway, let me know what style is best for you, what you feel like you get the most out of. I would also love to see your Sentry designs or other superhero art. Let me know what you were drawing along with me for this probably 45-minute video once I speed up this last bit again, and I will see you next time.